Was it your decision? How did you decide to become a nanny?
Well, you know, you arrive in New York and you understand that that you need to survive and you need to do what needs to be done at the moment. And I heard from someone that there was a family hiring, and shortly after I read in the newspaper, you know, there were lots of vacancies for nannies. And I answered one of the calls, and immediately when I arrived at the family's home, I knew that I was in the right place. I did not know how I was going to do it, but I had a passion and love for children, and because of that, I knew that I would be a really good caretaker. I knew that I would not harm them. I knew that I had the capacity innately to love them, because that's what I've always wanted. I always wanted, sorry, as a child. And so the family trusted me, and I spent 8 beautiful years raising kids from age 5 months, twins, and spent 8 years until they left off to go to full-time school.
So your first experience was with twins?
With twins at the time.
They weren't miserable twins?
They were very good twins. I worked for an incredible gay couple 13 years ago in New York. It was still very much taboo.
So that must have been a culture shock for you.
Of course, and I speak very open, and it was an experience. Again, there was something to teach. Here I was as an adult longing for my own father. And there we had 2 men longing to be fathers, my God, and they loved so passionately these children. They're such good parents. And again, the woman who wanted her father is observing that, so I had a deeper love and respect for them. So although it was a big cultural shock, because I'm coming from a very conservative Christian society, and here I am in the home of gay couples helping raise their children, and the lesson that this experience had to teach is the power of love. That it did not matter who their parents were, that love surpasseth everything. And I had 8 beautiful years of working with these children. I'm still very much involved, you know, in many aspects of their lives, and will always be. They have incredible parents. And for me, that's what really matters.
So at what point did you decide that I'm going to become an advocate, I'm going to do some more research on this, I'm going to find out as much as I can?
When you know, in New York, when it's really cold outside, you have to hang out in playrooms. Every big building in Manhattan has a playroom. And so you'd have nannies from Ecuador and nannies from St. Lucia, and from all over the world you would meet incredible women that would have what they call playdates. Playdates are very important. And that's where children come and they socialize and they have parties, and you know, it's very important. Every day there's a party. And I met incredible women. Women, some of them that had no formal education, but were able to teach me so much. Women that maybe did not have formal education, but longed to do so much. Those that had maybe a guest house in Jamaica. And I also realized that there was something to teach. And what that lesson taught me is that to never judge a book by its cover, to begin to delve into it and understand, you know, the intricate details of it. And that's what I did with these women. And for so many of them, I found out that they were broken. You know, they were emotionally broken, because there they were working as professional nannies, but being afraid to tell people that they're actually nannies. And that's when I wanted to be an advocate for nannies.
And so you started the blog. At what point did this blog start?
I started the blog about 5 years ago because I understand the power of dialogue. I understand the power of, you know, communication. Sometimes it's communication that avoids, you know, a lot of conflict. And I started the blog because it was, the honest thing is that it was a test. I wanted to see whether nannies would respond, but not just nannies. I wanted to see whether families would respond. And so I started the blog very organically, and I would blog about every issue that I found. If I was at the park and a parent maybe was upset because she felt that the nanny did not take care of the child right, I would go back and I would blog about it. So in many ways, I was teaching women, instead of fussing and fighting, let's have conversation. And the blog grew really fast, and I am really excited, you know, that the blog is moving in the right direction.
So that became your purpose in life?
Still then, I did not understand the purpose. I would go through a renaissance. I think it happened when I went through a spiritual reawakening, because I grew up again in a home of conservative Catholics. So it's not like I did not know about spirituality, but I understood the power of community. I understood the power of love, and I understood how important it is to help raise somebody else. I knew that I had some capacity in me to help other women, and for me that became my purpose. But I was still very confused about what do I do with my writing, and what do I do with my profession, and how do I survive even with that passion. So there was a lot of confusion at the time in my head as to what direction I decided to go.
So you never ever stopped writing ever since you started?
I never stopped writing. I don't think I'll ever stop writing. There is, I think Martin Luther King said it, there's a power of penning words to paper. It quiets angry tongues. There's a power in effective dialogue. There's a power in writing. For me, it's catharsis. If I feel very confused about something, I begin to journal. I teach women to journal their thoughts. And so I'll never stop writing, especially children's literature. There's so much to teach children, and children have really big imaginations, and I think as adults and parents we need to fuel that imagination.
So the first book you wrote is called The Hairy Fairy?
It is.
Interesting title.
Interesting.
Can you explain that to us, please?
Yes. As a nanny, I saw children cry every day for a haircut. And they would say, Leni, the scissors is going to cut me. I'm so scared. And they would be very nervous about haircuts, something we take for granted. And I thought, what do I do with this? Tell them a story. And I made up a story. But the story is really about overcoming your fear. In many ways, I was writing my own story because, again, I was going through that journey of life where I was beginning to find out who I truly was. And I needed to let go of so many fears that I had. I lived again with fear because it stemmed again because of the sudden passing of my grandmother. So The Hairy Fairy teaches children, how do you overcome fear? And it is a beautiful book that's very well received. And again, it takes you on that journey of being able to overcome your fear, but again in children's language. And it is available on Amazon. Yes, it is. And other places probably. Now, the second book, I must look for the title here because it's a bit... it's a bit long, and it was... A Guide to Developing a Successful Family and Nanny Relationship, and you answer the question. Yes, it's possible. Right. And I wanted to make it long. I wanted to, I understood that people would look at it, and that is the question the million-dollar question that lots of employers who have nannies ask. How do I have good relationship with my employee? Because they want to have, balance and a good harmony in their home. And the book pretty much helps the nanny and also the families realize that sometimes when relationships do not work, not only one person, but sometimes both parties are guilty. So it teaches them how to have great relationships and how do you avoid violating your employee, and likewise how do you ensure that you are not crossing boundaries as an employer also. It is not a very simple relationship. Being a nanny, you go into a family, so there can be complications, there can be tensions, you can find a difficult family, you can find a family that's very easy to get along with. How does that book help? Two things. One, people who are seeking employment as nannies, and also families looking for a nanny. How does it help resolve or guide on some of those issues? That's a very good question. It's such a complicated dynamic, because here I am entering into the intimacy of someone's home and being there as an employee and being very involved, very invasive in their lives, raising their children, and how do you ensure that you are hiring the right person? I think what my book does is that it helps guide both nannies and employers as to what do you look for first. And one of the key things that I often tell people is the idea of respect. That if I'm going to work for you and you're going to hire me, that we have to have mutual respect, that there are fundamental things that can never be compromised in order to build great relationships. Oftentimes we do not talk about the fact that I might be working for somebody who does not look like me. Here I am, maybe an immigrant person, a black woman going into a white woman's home with different ideologies. We have culture at play. All of these things my book would touch on. And how do I go in there, again, not violating this home and the boundaries that's been created. And for the family, ensuring that you understand that you're hiring a professional and not the help. And that, again, boundaries are not violated. And my book touches all of that.